They say
No,
tomorrow night,
no,
next year.
no.
Good, because by me it's this way: the longer they know, the harder they yes.
Well, I don't want to be honorable with you unless it's absolutely necessary.
It is the Al Travis Show, and we're lucky to have our next guest on. He is president of the American Experiment. He's our friend. He's John Hinderaker. I don't know, John. When you make your own news, I don't know what to do with you. We had talked, I think, a couple of weeks ago. We bring it up that you had a big deal going on in Mankato. Power to Choose, the Education Expo in the Mankato area, and then you make the news. What am I reading that you guys got what, 86? Is that what they call it when they kick you out of a restaurant? What happened in Mankato, if I can ask you, sir?
Well, it happened, I guess, on Tuesday. Somebody who doesn't like us
Okay.
complained to the YMCA at Mankato, which is going to host our event on April 24th.
Yeah.
And the person who runs the Mankato YMCA canceled our event. Told us about it. I think it was on Tuesday, and there was some lively back and forth on the Facebook page of the Mankato YMCA.
Yes. That's how I found out about it. I'm like, wow, what's going on here? You were just coming in. What was the conversation going to be about? And I don't know, maybe you're going someplace else. What are the plans? What, you were really talking education or something, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, this was actually going to be well, it's going to be. We're going to do the event, just not at the YMCA. But
Okay.
it's the Education Expo.
Okay.
And it's a program intended for parents primarily of school children in the Mankato area, just to have exhibitors talk about who they are, what they do, what options are available for families in the Mankato area. And so there are 20 exhibitors who have lined up to participate in the program, including, for example, the Mankato Public Schools. Mankato Public Schools are one of the 20 groups that are going to
No way. So
participate.
literally the school's talking about schools. I mean, this isn't you coming in hitting hot abortion or illegal immigrant. This is you just talking education, and someone is so upset that the Y caved on this. I find that's tough.
Well, it's extraordinary. As you know, Al, we do a lot of events. We
Oh yeah.
average over an event a week over the course of the year across the state of Minnesota. And I would say it's never happened. There was one kind of well-known case in Rochester that
Yes.
resulted in a successful lawsuit, but it's very rare, and it's annoying. The good thing about this particular event is that the Education Expo is not until the 24th of April. So that gives us time to find a new venue and do a new mailing to our people in the Mankato area, telling them about the new
All right.
thing.
Well, keep us posted. That's I love having you on, and then when I see you in the news, I'm like, what is going on? Okay, so let's talk about it, if you don't mind. And I don't know how much you watched. Donald Trump last night, President Trump, did a half-hour speech, which only he can make an hour long. To be honest, it was too long, about Liberation Day and tariffs. In the short term, obviously, everybody's scared to death about what's going to happen. What's your thoughts on it, John? When he went through the list of countries and what they tariff us compared to what we do and met them halfway, it sure seemed logical that this would be better for America in the long run. Your thoughts?
Well, one thing I have never seen, Al, is an objective and systematic analysis of
Mm-hmm.
tariff rates by countries around the world.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll hear individual statistics.
Yep.
Well, Canada's got a 250% tariff on dairy products. After a certain level, it's zero
Yep.
up to some point, and then it's 250%, which is basically a quota. I assume that they don't
Yeah.
import any dairy products from America once they get to that 250%
Yes.
level. Just like we've got a quota on cane sugar from the Caribbean here in the United States. And so you hear different facts here and there, different statistics here and there, but what I have literally never seen is a coherent overall analysis of tariff levels around the world because there's a lot of countries, there's a lot of products, and there are different ways in which countries administer not just tariffs, but quotas and other kinds of restrictions on trade. I mean, for example, I'm not sure if it's still true or not, but I know that for years, the European Union barred GMO soybeans.
Mhm.
Why did they do that? Was it because they are benighted and don't understand that there's nothing wrong with GMO soybeans? No, they're perfectly well aware that there's nothing wrong with GMO soybeans. What they also know is that 100% of American soybeans are GMO.
Yeah, GMO. Yeah.
And so essentially that was a protectionist move to ban American soybeans to give their own soybean growers a better shot because our American farmers, farm more efficiently than anybody else. So one thing I saw in the news yesterday, again, there's so many data points that it's hard to get a coherent look at them. But one thing I saw in the news was the Prime Minister of Australia being quoted as saying that they were not going to do reciprocal tariffs and pointing out that Australia doesn't have any tariffs on imports from the United States. So I don't know, Al. I really honestly don't know if you look at that total landscape of trade restrictions around the world, what it looks like.
Well, and I gotta think, and I just put it out here, we have more cards in our hand than most. I use Canada. I saw a story the other day that 75% of what their GDP is exporting, and almost all of that to us. So, to get into a game with us might be kind of tough. Venezuela, suppose you've already caved, said we're done doing the trading thing. Not how much we get out of Venezuela. I don't know how big that's going to change anything, but at least makes everybody in the world look at it, right, and say, America wants to play fair, or they're going to, take their money away. I don't know if it's bad. The short term, obviously, whatever's coming in starting today has got a 10% or 25% tax on it. That's not good. But do you see that this could end up realigning the world and getting everything back to a more centered thing where America, the big powerhouse, gets to be the powerhouse?
Well, I hope so, Al. If you go back to the first Trump term, there was all kinds of talk about tariffs, and the phrase trade war was being used constantly. Remember that back in 2017? I mean, trade war, Trump's trade war. Well, it turned out there wasn't any trade war. The whole thing kind of, he renegotiated some trade deals, and the whole thing kind of went away. And one of the facts that I like to point out is that U.S. customs revenue, which is tariff revenue, was higher during the Biden administration than it was during the first Trump administration. Okay. It was higher. Well, the phrase trade war was never uttered once during the Biden administration, right?
Yeah.
And so what my line on this, beginning with Trump's inauguration the second time here, has been, let's just chill, everybody relax and see how it plays out, because we've been through this before, and in 2017, it played out just fine. Now, to be fair, it looks like Trump is a lot more serious about tariffs this time than he was 8 years ago. And so the stock market certainly doesn't like it. We know that.
No.
That's something you can measure.
On the other hand, no one seemed to care when inflation was going on for the last 4 years. They were hiding as temporaries, this and that. If this is to increase pricing, no one should really complain, right? I say that, regular Joes, we should, but the news and the rest shouldn't. I've got to go to break. I do want to mention Bill Glahn. You know the guy? Yeah.
Yes, his office is right next door to mine.
Yeah, he's coming on. I want to talk feeding our futures, and he's coming on to bust that whole thing down for us. When I saw that you guys did a Zoom meeting thingy, I said, I want him on. I want to talk to him about it. So he's coming on later today. So we won't talk any feeding our futures. I would like to talk some budgeting stuff with you on the other side. The House, the Senate, everybody's throwing their budgets out. We got to get it figured out. I want to talk to John Hinderaker about it right after this on the Al Travis Show.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
You know that car sound that sounds like a cricket playing a banjo? Jays can fix that. You know when you step on the brakes and your car sounds like a pair of tennis shoes in the dryer? Paul is the guy who specializes in that. And you know that sound that never happens when the mechanic's around? Paul took a whole course on that. If you own a car, you need to know Paul. Paul owns Jay's Auto Shop, 202 North Main Street, Blue Earth, 525-1052, 525-1052.
A as in alligator. L also in alligator. But it's not alligator. It's the Al Travis Show.
And we've got him, president of the American Experiment, John Hinderaker, on the program. John, here's what I'd like to ask. The governor comes out $66 billion budget. He has decided he can cut a couple of $100 million out of that. Okay. The Senate wants to cut $2.4 billion, I think it is. The House 1 point something. Everyone claiming, they've got the best idea. I'm going to ask you, you have very good accountant guys on your team, analysis guys. I'm just a small-minded man. Last budget was $71 billion, and that included $17 billion we, flushed and did one-time money. So if I take 17 off of that, I get $54 billion. And I'm calling that my base. That's just where we're at last time. Everyone talks about cutting, but as far as I can tell, the budget number they're talking about is in the $60 billion range, a 10 to 12% increase that everyone, including the papers, keep calling me as a decrease. It's a cut. Could we not get to a point where we can start talking numbers the rest of us understand? How you're cutting $2.4 billion and I'm costing me $6 billion more than last time?
Well, Al, a couple of things. Number one, when your family budgets or my family budgets, if we spend more money this year than we spent last year, we call that an increase.
Yes.
And the government doesn't look at it that way. If the government thinks about spending $70 billion this year, but they decide to only spend $68 billion this year, they call that a cut.
But John, you get it. You do this for a living. I get frustrated with it. The average Joe he's got to get his kids to school, then he's got to get to the plumbing job, then he's got to go to, he doesn't have time to weed out the weird word stuff.
There is, unfortunately, Al, there is no prospect of the Minnesota state budget actually being cut. I would love to see it. You would probably love to see it. A lot of voters would love to see it. It isn't going to happen, unfortunately. But I think that what people really need to understand, Al, is that $17.6 billion surplus that we were talking about a couple of years ago, that is still being spent. It is still being spent. So when they talk about, oh, there's a deficit, a $6 billion deficit in the out years, not now, but in a couple of
Yeah.
years, what that really means is that the $17.6 billion is run out. So we are in a deficit situation right now. In 2024, the state of Minnesota spent $4.7 billion more than it took in. So we ran in 2024 a $4.7 billion deficit. So what I would like to see is for the legislature to say, well, wait a minute, we need to balance this budget going forward. We need to eliminate this structural deficit and not keep kicking the can down the road by continuing to spend the surplus that we had a couple of years ago. That's not going to happen the way it looks. No party in these negotiations is actually balancing the state budget. That's how I understand it.
All right, and that's what kills me. Is you can follow along. I need one of your guys to lay this out in a simple map because people don't get it. I'm trying to follow along. It doesn't make sense. Really quickly, side note, the governor comes out and says that he's going to have his people put together a website that will track all this stuff that the president and Dozier are doing and how it's going to affect Minnesotans. Going to be a little tracker, how much money it's going to cost Minnesotans. Sir, is there any chance in God's green earth this guy could put that kind of complicated website together? I just go back to Department of Motor Vehicles, whatever. They spent billions upon billions, could never get that upgraded. You think you can come out in 60 days, this governor can spend the kind of money it takes to do a tracker like that? If it is, then the other one was because they didn't want it bad enough.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, to the extent that Doge results in money not flowing to the state of Minnesota, what that's measuring is the amount of fraudulent spending that we have been getting. And given that we are the most corrupt state in the United States of America in terms of managing our own money, look at the scandal tracker that Bill Glenn has created.
Well, see, that's my point. If he's got that kind of talent and people on his staff, why isn't he not spending it and saying, here's where all the money we're wasting is going, and show me where it's going instead. Anyway.
No, it's because he's not opposed to wasting money. He wants to waste more money.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I just, these things are crazy to me. All right. Before I let you go, I know we're going to find out what's going on with the Mankato thing, right? That's coming up on the 24th. You have something coming up here next week, I believe, 6 days from now. Child care crisis in well, it isn't. It's in Rochester, but it's about the child care crisis, red tape, rising prices, vanishing options in Minnesota. Martha Giulimoli is putting that thing on in Rochester. I want to let people know about it.
Yeah, one of Minnesota's many unfortunate distinctions is that we have the most expensive child care on the average of any state. Why is that? Well, it has to do with government regulations. Martha wrote a great paper on child care, the cost of child care in Minnesota a year or so ago. And this event, it's on April 9th at 6 p.m., is being sponsored by our Rochester chapter. If you go to americanexperiment.org, and click on the tab at the top that says events, you can learn all about that Rochester event as well as other things that we've got coming up.
Well, and the other thing is the annual dinner gala. I got to think that's going to get sold out sooner than later. May 17th. The coolest thing ever is this guy is fantastic. CNN Scott Jennings. He's an X star more than he's a CNN star because he gets his bits from CNN, puts them on X, and it just goes viral. This guy is amazing. He's at your gala, right? On the 17th?
Yeah, he is headlining our 2025 annual dinner gala on May 17th. It's going to be a fun event.
Oh.
I don't know how Scott does it. As far as I can say, he's on TV all day long, on CNN. He's the only conservative on CNN. And so whenever he's on, he's always doing battle with 2 or 3 liberals.
Yeah.
And he vanquishes them with ease. It's going to be a fun evening.
And you can get those tickets. Those tickets for sale yet? Can you get tickets to the gala? How does that work?
Tickets are on sale. Table sales are underway. Individual ticket sales are underway. And so go to americanexperiment.org. Again, if you click the events tab at the top, you can get all the information about the annual dinner and you can buy tickets.
Thank you, John. Love having you on. John Hinderaker with the American Experiment.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul.